Good morning. One person. Slight reluctant morning. Let's try that again. Good morning, Google Beach. There's a few hangovers out there, aren't there? You nursing one? You haven't moved. You were there last night for the football. You've been here all night. Well, welcome. Good afternoon just to Google Beach. Thank you very much for coming down. We got our first of today's lightning talk coming your way very soon, which YouTube campaigns really nailed it. That's our first one of today. If you weren't here yesterday, we had some amazing lightning talks yesterday as well. If you did miss them or you saw them and want to catch up with them, then all of that content is on YouTube. So please make sure that you log on and have a look at that. Also, it's my job to tell you that we're doing some wrap-up highlight videos as well. So it kind of condenses all the key information across the day. That's being posted every day on Twitter towards the end of the day, and the handle for that is @ThinkWithGoogle. So make sure you check that out every day, and that will kind of give you an insight to the big stories of the day up here. So, Google Beach, huh? Have you had a chance to have a look around yet? Some of you have. You got your cap on, look. You were here. Early doors, queuing up. Couldn't wait. We got some fantastic demos around, so please make sure you see them. Stick around. We got fresh juices, and we got some amazing entertainment on this stage a little later on. I will not reveal who, but please don't go too far because you will miss it, and we don't want you to do that. So, on top of that, somebody got paid a huge amount of money to come up with our hashtag Google Beach this year. All right, brilliantly creative, isn't it, for Can Lions? So we want to make sure you use that. So if you would like to take some nice photographs, then please share them under the hashtag of Google Beach. Say nice things and share those. So just be nice, because we're nice, you're nice, and it's sunny. What more do you want? You're all nodding off because I'm talking a lot. We'll crack on. All right. So it's my job to whip you into a frenzy, which I appreciate is hard, bearing in mind, it's early, it's hot. But we're going to do that nevertheless. It's important that your mind is engaged and ready for content. So we're going to just do a couple of things. Just a bit of like mind yoga, if that's what you want to call it. Have a look at the screen and take a look at this. I'm going to ask you if you can find the mistake on the screen. Just have a look at that. Anyone spot it? If you do, put your hand up. Okay. More importantly, is anyone awake? You're awake or you got it? You got it? You got it. Good. Anyone else got it? You got it? A couple of you got it? No? She's scratching her head. You got it down here. Can you find the mistake? See? Annoying as well as fun. Or maybe it's just annoying. All right, I'm going to carry on. I've got loads of these. So we're going to play another one. We've got to get your mind going, all right? This is what we do here. So let's bring up one of these. So these are our little sort of puzzles. They're either a play on words or a word that you might recognize. I'll let you know what this one is. So this, unless you're really smart. Okay, but obviously the plus sign is an ad. So it's an adder, all right, which is a snake in the grass. See what we've done there? I'm glad you're enjoying these, all right? This is brilliant. Just keep the cameras this way because I don't want you to see their faces. They're just in awe of this. Right, next one's for you. You've got to solve this one, people. Okay, there are prizes. Have anyone got this one? You haven't got it, you're just waving to someone. Thanks. Who was that, man? Genius. Well done. Overnight success. See what we've done there? Give the man a prize. You can have your choice of smoothies. There we go. Right, one more, and then I'm going to go on. Even though I can just feel the love for these, you probably want more. You're going to get one more. Come on, anyone? Got it? Got it? No? Come on, you're smart people. You can do this. Got it. What are you going? Painting by numbers. Let's give her a ripple of applause. Come on, congratulate. Well done. You're so proud of yourself. I like that. Painted by numbers. All right, we got loads of these, so please don't leave ever. All right, are you ready for our first lightning talk of the day? We're going to do that again with a little bit more enthusiasm. Are you ready for the first lightning talk of the day? Indeed you are. So here we go. First, which YouTube campaigns got it very right this year. So to facilitate this and tell us all about it, please welcome the CSO of BBH London, Alison Hode.
Thank you. So, hello, and thank you very much for coming along to hear about which campaigns nailed it. In fact, wanting to know more about effectiveness generally on YouTube and who was really nailing it is why I wanted to get involved in the 2018 YouTube Works for Brands Awards in the first place. It's been an absolute pleasure chairing these awards in their second year. And I think anybody who's heard me talk or tweet or write on these award schemes understands that I think it's critically important, given the scale and reach of this platform, that we do now have an annual award scheme set up to recognise best-in-class effectiveness on YouTube. And I think it's important, before we kick off today, that when we talk about effectiveness for YouTube Works, we really mean it. These are not awards for clicks or views. They're for actions that people went on in the real world to do, having clicked or viewed. And time again, what we saw in these awards were brands who, when those people had gone on to do something, had huge commercial or cultural change as a result. So let's have a quick look at some of this year's winners. I'd like to welcome to the stage some of the other judges I was lucky enough to judge with this year. So Jen Smith, who is one of London's finest media minds, who has just recently started her own agency, Craft Media. If you would like to come up. Kevin Chester, somewhat of a Renaissance man, having served very effectively with client and agency side and currently Chief Strategy Officer at O&M. And Will Wally from Google, who actually is the brainchild of these awards in the first place. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. I'm here all week.
So to kick off, I always find when I'm judging awards that I normally get to one case or one paper and I think, damn it, I wish I'd thought of that. So much as all of this year's winners show real effectiveness, I'd like to ask you first, Jen, what for you was the paper where you thought, damn it, that's an idea I'd like to have had?
So my one that gave me little shivers was the BT case study. And at the moment, there's a lot of debate in Twitter, especially today, about creativity and data, and are they friends or are they enemies? And when I read this, I thought they've got it right, because it was not about using data to come up with these insights, because data was fact, but what they used them for was ingredients, and then they handed those ingredients over to the creative agency, and they just cooked up something that was really delicious. And I thought, that's it. That makes me jealous. That's how we merge
It was data as
Data
creative
and
fuel
crea-
as well as
yeah, totally.
planning insight, wasn't it? Yeah. Kevin.
Thank you, Alison. Glad you asked me. Hello, everyone. You'll probably hear a lot about this campaign this week, actually. It was the Bodyform Blood Normal campaign. Couple of reasons, really. I think the clue's in the name, I think, with the YouTube Works Awards. You know, it was actually sort of people, rather than just people entering papers that they'd entered into everything. I thought was really useful about this was it was a campaign that literally couldn't exist without YouTube, because all like the mainstream media and various things wouldn't touch it. So first off, it was a brilliant, brilliant use. One of the judges, can't remember who, said if YouTube didn't exist, they'd have to invent it for a campaign like this, which I thought was brilliant. And I think the other thing with that campaign was I think it showed what happens when you've got a brilliant client-agency relationship. So I met them all on the night when we handed out the awards, and like, they clearly like each other, they trust each other, therefore they'll take a risk with each other, and I think that's why it led to something brilliant. So that was...
Will?
Can I do two?
You can.
I'll do two. So I think the first one for me that really stood out, I think Heineken was brilliant. It was one of I mean, hearing Josh Spanier talk earlier, when he talked about making ads that people care about, it felt to me like that was one of these campaigns that actually got out into kind of the public consciousness in a way that most ad campaigns never do. I think it was a brilliant idea. Absolutely, founded on a kind of truth of the product, but really tied to the kind of more divided than ever kind of zeitgeist, and then pushed brilliantly through the media mix in a really, intelligent way, and absolutely used YouTube at its heart. And you saw the guy in the film talking about how YouTube was critical to the campaign. And then I think the other one I thought was really interesting and kind of surprised me was Superdry, because that's a campaign, and I'd urge you to have a look at the case studies that are all online. That campaign really showed how YouTube kind of is now bridging both a kind of a brand activation world right the way through to a sales world. So that kind of through the funnel, using kind of a lot of the new, more kind of performance-orientated products that we've got now, I thought was a really smart way of using the platform, and really shows how advertisers are using the platform in new ways.
Yeah, and that was one of those papers that I know it was funny when I was briefing all the judges before the judging day, one of the things I said is, why have you turned up? Why are you doing this? And it was very much because people felt that they wanted to learn more about how they could use YouTube. And I think there was real sense on that day that Superdry, the way in which they were using data and tracking it right through to the retail experience was something new. But even I think in everyone's personal favourites, I think already you begin to see that through judging this, one of the things you really walk away with is that there isn't one way, there are so many different ways. So the joy of something like BT, where you could be searching, a cricket fan might be searching for Tenerife, and up would come, Jeff Boycott telling him not to be doing anything other than searching for ashes, feels really personal and one-to-one and hugely targeted. But at the same time, things like Bodyform and Heineken were absolutely about using YouTube as a collective platform for conversation. So I thought that was just a range of your damn it moments. So if those were kind of the kind of bits you've zoned in on as your favourite papers, did you get any sense of themes across everything that we judged? So, for example, much as I sort of knew this before I judged these awards, it sounds obvious, because we've all seen YouTube give a voice to lots of influencers and artists that we wouldn't have heard of. But actually, I was really surprised by the extent to which it could give a voice to brands that I just don't think would have cut through under pretty much any other channel. So something like Bodyform, which was outspent 3 or 4 to 1 if it had been in TV, #1 social share of voice, massive global conversation about that brand. And there were other examples. So for me, that was something I knew, but I hadn't really thought about applying that to some of the businesses I work on. Was that the same for other people, or did you have different themes that emerged? Kevin, do you want to?
I think to go back to that thing of bravery is one thing. I think that emerged. I think you saw when people took risks, they tended to be the better papers, I thought. 2 other things, I think, were themes that came out. One was, again, just to see how important it is to kind of get into social or cultural relevance.
Yeah.
I think, you saw when people had something and then it got picked up and people talked about it and passed it around, and it was a great medium for that. I think the other thing, probably, as I wander down the beach and I see sort of, Spotify and Pinterest and Google and whatever, I thought one of the things I thought was really interesting was still to see, encouraging to see, that still creativity was still the key and was still the king, but it's just the technology massively amplified and accelerated it. I think it was those 2 things working together, a bit like, like you've got sort of the wheels and the engine of a car, and they kind of make sense apart, but they make a damn sight more sense when they work together to one aim. So I think it was just seeing the power of creativity was great in most of those cases.
Yeah.
Like you say, even the tiny brands, like there was people who spent, low 4 figures of campaigns, but did brilliant things with using the medium. So that was good.
Jen?
Well, mine's obviously a media planning point of view in that the theme for me was there's no one way to do YouTube anymore. YouTube traditionally might have been the thing that you got sort of reach. Make something over here, use YouTube to reach people across the internet. And there were so many campaigns that it wasn't a distribution channel that it was used for, it was an inception channel. So whether that was from insight or the idea actually lived wholly there, but it became way more than just this way of just putting it on the internet and reaching people. And I just thought that was really, from a geeky media planner point of view, you can start having fun now when people are starting using it that way.
Yeah.
I think for me, there was a big theme around that sort of shift from maybe people initially seeing YouTube as video and thinking, well, video, that's kind of a brand sort of channel, and putting it in that sort of box mentally, to people now, as I mentioned with Superdry, sort of seeing YouTube as having a potential role at lots of different stages of the funnel, even down into more performance places. And so that kind of broadening out, I think, was really interesting. And I think it plays very much to the way we're talking about YouTube now as being more than just viewers. It's very much predicated on attention and having a kind of superior audience attention. I think the fact that we're able to see papers that really demonstrate the actions people took, actually going to buy something, increase sales, app downloads, you heard the Hostelworld guy talking about, really demonstrates kind of proof of concept that this is a platform where people are really engaged in a way that they're maybe less so elsewhere.
Yeah. I think the Hostelworld, which actually was Breakthrough Client of the Year and was also the Grand Prix, I think was really interesting because I think it picks up on a number of those things. So the whole thing about creativity, but also, the technology. So they had a really clever app which allowed you to be able to talk to anybody wherever you were in the world. But at the same time, actually, it won the Grand Prix because of good old storytelling, but very cleverly native storytelling. And so I think a lot of that did come through in something like the Hostelworld, both of their papers, even through to, again, right through the journey. So 20% increase in bookings. And I think it was interesting because I was going to ask you, Will, because I've obviously read last year's papers coming into it this year, but do you see different themes? Now we're in our second year. Are there any different themes you think that are emerging?
One thing that was really interesting, I think, was this move from, I think initially, and this kind of goes back to what Jen was talking about, I think people saw YouTube as largely a kind of content distribution platform, and it was a place to put stuff that wasn't necessarily advertising. And yes, we still have campaigns that do that very well, or campaigns like Heineken that kind of almost straddle a world, but they've got one foot in the content world and one foot in the advertising world. They're somewhere in between. But I think increasingly we're seeing people really lean into the advertising formats that are part of the platform, and particularly from the kind of the media angle, as the platforms got more sophisticated and there are more product options there to deliver against different sorts of goals and objectives, I think we're really seeing the industry kind of leaning into that and skill up and become far better attuned to the possibilities that the platform enables.
Yeah, and I think one of the other things this year, I think it was something that you said, Jen, on the day, or subsequently was this thought around, you kind of come into it, and I think last year quite a lot of the big winners had done really kind of novel breakthrough content ideas, whether it was sort of episodic football idea, or whether it was Mattison's allowing people, building a machine that allowed you to game as you ate, and then training coding. But I think this year you began to see it wasn't just things that were different. I think you said this thing which was you kind of walk away going, all of these cases are good. It's not that they're different, they're just all really good. And I think that was a key learning for me as well, not to be frightened that you have to do stuff. It allows you to do really different stuff, and that's fantastic. But actually sometimes it is about good old storytelling, about amplifying that elsewhere. So thinking about what you took away with you from these awards, when you go back to your client or your agencies, what do you think the kind of key things you learnt are that you'll be bringing back with you? Kevin, I don't think you've gone first yet, surprisingly.
Oh, amazing. I think it was more something I was encouraged by, I think, than a learning. It was great to see. I loved the EE paper. So seeing 3 years of a campaign build and get better, and the results get better year on year on year using the platform. And I think it was brilliant. The key learning for me on that just was that, long-term brilliant storytelling. Long-term investment in brand. And it goes again to a good client, building that relationship with the agency over, first year, then not just resting on the laurels, taking the ideas somewhere different the second year, building and taking it somewhere better the third year. So I just loved that long-term investment in brand, still working despite, it being on a new media platform. I thought that was great. And again, just that thing of bravery, which was, you see it, that maybe it's because it's still, even though it's like now 10, 12 years old as a platform, still maybe because people see it as a new media, maybe people are more likely to take a risk than maybe on traditional channels where there's a lot more sort of people watching what you're doing. So I just think, take a risk, be brave, and I just think that client-agency relationship thing seemed to come through again. It was just invest for the long term, I think, not the short term.
There was this was like the third year it had run, and there was a sort of sense in the judging day of, do we award it again because it won? But the kind of results between year 2 and year 3 were like exponential. Something like 30,000 people at the end of it were willing to pay money to go to the actual, branded event at Wembley.
Run around. Yeah, I mean, amazing.
For me, media strategy in channel is back. It's what I took out. It gave me a little sense of joy. Strategy has become so heavy, really, so unreachable and untouchable, that doing these awards, and what sort of gave me joy was actually teeth to toes planning in channel. So the work for Hostel World was just brilliant. Everything from understanding about clickbait titles to how your thumbnail looks to how you're using different formats. It was beautifully crafted strategy in channel that, to be honest, I haven't seen in a long while, and I'm just dead excited about making something beautiful in the craft of creating it.
Yeah.
I think for me the big theme, and my big outtake was really the flexibility of the platform now. I think as it's kind of matured, as Kevin said, it's been around for a while now, and I think it's sophisticated, but I think that's now giving us so many more options with regards to how advertisers and agencies can use the platform, be that for content, for advertising, be that long form or short form, be that big brands like the Heinekens and the EEs, or small brands. So there was, we had a Robinson's Brewery entering a paper there, and I'm from Stockport in the northwest of England, and Robinson's Brewery is very, very small regional brewers. I think, as Kev said, they invested like $3,000 and they got back something like 21,000. That was an 80% increase in sales.
We didn't actually believe that this could actually be true. So on the day, everyone was like ripping it apart, going, "There's just no way they spent 3,000 or 5,000 and increased it with, particularly when they just lost distribution." So we were almost just on not believing this fact. So we said we've got to go back to them and call them up, and called up this little tiny brewery in Stockport.
And it was true.
YouTube on the phone. Can you please confirm that actually nothing changed in pricing, packaging? So that sense of some of the smaller budget that could really cut through.
And I think that was amazing for me, because and internally, speaking with a kind of Google hat on, I think with it internally we've often thought of like search is our platform that's kind of that reaches the long tail, and I think what's interesting about that case of Robinson's Brewery is sort of that to me said, now maybe we've got another platform that's potentially going to start moving into that long tail, as well as even smaller advertisers start adopting video through YouTube.
Yeah, and I think for me it was just the gold mine that is the data, in terms of how much you can really. I think your BT example at the beginning, that was the one I read, and I didn't just read it and go, "This is brilliant." I kind of read it and went and give it to a team that I work with and said, "Why aren't we doing stuff like this?" It's really brilliant, and the way in which you can mine the data. Certainly, I wasn't as close to. It was the kind of key learning that I walked away with. So one last final quick question: having judged YouTube this year, how, if at all, did your perception of YouTube change? Jen, do you want to?
So I really enjoyed judging it. I if I'm honest, I was expecting how my perception changed. I went into it thinking I was going to see lots of just really great creative work that wouldn't be able to see anywhere else. And so it was put on YouTube and it was delivered. Like very much a creative forward papers that were put in. And I didn't see that at all. I saw some really lovely strategic, insighty data, effectiveness awards. So I think the fact that that's what I thought I was going to see and it's not what I saw, that's how my perception changed, is that it's not just for this amazing creative work that unleashes all of the restraints, a place to put it on. It's actually a place to do some really good, insightful and effective planning.
Great. Kevin?
I mean, I don't think my opinion particularly changed. It was always pretty high. I think one of the things that was good from the awards, I mean, to agree with Jen, I was expecting that I would just see APG papers or IPA papers on YouTube, and so I was really, really impressed with just how people had specifically used the medium, and I think that's obviously, the ones that got the special awards and various things were specific uses. I think it's just given, for any of the sort of naysayers or, anybody who sort of, moans and sniffs, I think, at a channel, I think it's just given, as I suppose was the intention, it's given me, a lot more ammunition to sort of go away and, educate thyself. There's sort of, there's great cases there, and obviously I'd urge all of you to go away and read them. I mean, they're all brilliant. They're all really good. They don't take long to read. You'll learn something from every one of them. They're all brilliant.
Well, is there anything that you'll bring back to Google HQ? Almost maybe from seeing how the judges reacted in the room.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's obviously it's fantastic for us even just to expose sort of industry luminaries like the people sat here, and there were other judges too, another 8 in fact, I think, just a real great variety of YouTube campaigns so people can see how the platform's working in lots of different ways, and maybe it inspires them to go and think about it in a different way. But yeah, I feel personally it's absolutely it's a vindication, I feel, of how we've positioned the platform in the market as being about more than just viewers. That's quite a high bar to kind of claim that. And actually, when you look across the campaigns that we've had submitted for YouTube Works to brands, actually it completely bears that out. So often it's quite difficult when you create something and you're very close to it, like that kind of brand positioning. You sort of slightly concerned, like, are people going to buy this? Is it true?
Yeah.
And actually, you put it out to the market, and what you get back tells you, yes, you were right.
Yeah.
And it really is more than just viewers.
And I'd just echo your point, Kevin, which is who dares wins. And I think it just encouraged me, definitely, to be braver. So I'd just like to thank everyone here for coming along to hear this today. As you've said, they're all available online, and I'd urge you and the people that work with and for you to read them, because there really are some gems that will allow us to do differently. Thank you to our judges for taking part this year, and thank you to Google for asking me to do it. Have a fantastic rest of the day and week in Cannes. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Google Beach. How are you? There's a few whoops there from the stalls and the cheap seats at the back. You're allowed to sit closer. We don't pick on people. It's fine. How are you? You all good? It's hot, right? But let's be happy about that. I'm English. We moan if whatever the weather's doing. So, but it's hot and we're in beautiful Cannes. So let's smile about that. Welcome to our second lightning talk of the day. We're having these all week. I'm sure you're aware of that. And we had a whole jam-packed day full of them yesterday, and again today. If you didn't manage to get down and see us yesterday, but you want to catch up on any of the content, then just head over to YouTube, where conveniently we've collated all of the content for you to watch. So make sure you do that. And also, we had to come up with a hashtag for the event. So I got that responsibility. I charged the big bucks and came up with Google Beach. Good, huh? Like it? If any of you want, employer, and I've got my head's just full of good ideas. It's packed. They're not laughing at my joke. I think they're having their own. So hashtag Google Beach is what we are looking for you to use. All right. So if you want to take nice pictures, I've seen the selfies are good. Say nice things. Then make sure you hashtag us in, and we can all be happy about that. Okay. Before we crack on with our lightning talk for you, we got a good one for you lined up. I just want to make sure that your brains are engaged. We've been doing this all week, and people are loving it. I mean, I walk across the beach, and people are going, "Hey, Nigel, you're going to do some more of your mind things for us, aren't you? Because they're the favourite thing of Cannes." And I say, "Yeah, we'll do a couple for you." And they go, "Thanks, man. We're so lucky." So we're going to do some, right? So have a look at this. Okay, obviously lots of words in different colours. Just to engage your brain, right? I want you to not read the word, but I want you to say the colour that you see. So this would be green, of course. All right? Let's nice and loud and hear you. Come on, let's get the brain working. Read them along. Go. Okay, right. Okay, brilliant. Right, you sound like a load of drunk people, which is probably happening regardless of that. Okay, that's good. So we're engaging your brain. That's good. We like that. Okay, we have a couple of these for you as well. These are kind of like visual mind tricks of play on words. So, for example, and I'll let you know this one. This is the plus sign, of course, which is an ad. So, adder. Adder is a snake, and that is, where is it? It's in the grass, right? So snake in the grass. All right? It's a tough one. All right? I told you that one. See if you can get this one. There is a prize if you can get it. Forever on Monday. That classic saying. No, not that one. Forever and a day. Yeah, such a lovely sound from an audience. All right. Okay, you have one more. Man overboard. Give her a... You're not even allowed to play. You're excited. I've got another 25 slides if you want to do them. Shall we? Or you want to speak, I guess. All right. Well, another time. So they're fun, aren't they? I do them before every lightning talk. So make sure you turn up early because it's quite tough to get a front row seat when I'm doing them. So there's for you. Right. Well, lots going on today. So shall we crack on with our lightning talk? Indeed we shall. So this is an interesting one, of course. This is Why is Creative Not Speaking to Women? We have two presenters for you. First of all, the co-founder and CCO of Joan Creative, Jamie Robinson, and also Creative Innovation Lead, Art, Copy and Code at Google, Alexis Cox. Welcome to the stage. Come on.
Thank you. Hello. Okay. Oh, our mics are on, Alexis.
Oh, great.
Yeah. We're definitely breaking the rules right now by having 3 beverages on the stage. I think the camera would like one, but...
Well, yes, thank you so much for coming. I'm going to take these off and hopefully not get blinded. Might put them back on.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's really nice to see you all here. Thank you so much for coming. I'm Alexis, by the way. It's not every day that I get to work on something that not only has potential to have great business impact, but also has a lot of personal relevance. And so I know we only have 20 minutes or so for this talk, but I know for a lot of us this has been a lifelong conversation. So thank you for coming and listening to us talk. I'm here with Joan. From Joan
Well, Jamie from Joan
I'm
Creative.
here with Joan. She is Joan. Just kidding. So this talk is really about, it's as much about a campaign that we did for YouTube as it is about a research project that it turned into about why creative is not speaking to women. And so what I do at Google, I have a fortunate job. It's pretty awesome. I get briefed by different groups at Google with very broad business problems. So they come to me with a question, and I get to solve the problem. So when YouTube came to me and asked, how can we position women on YouTube? How can we elevate them? How can we make them speak for themselves in a very empowered way? It was a very broad set of questions. Basically, how can we make our creative on YouTube be authentic to women so we can support them in the same ways that men on YouTube have been successful? And so what an interesting challenge. And I, of course, had to accept this brief because it's a tricky one. I think it's one that's kind of brief that would scare a lot of people.
Why? I don't really know. That seems...
Yeah, so we took on this brief, and one thing that was really, really important to me was the team that was going to work on this. And so I looked at a lot of different agencies, and when I saw Joan and the portfolio that Joan had put together, I knew that I had to work with them, and I had to work with Jamie.
Aw. Well, the brief was really exciting for us, too, because... first of all, YouTube is an incredible brand. And when you look at what these women are doing, these creators, these YouTube creators, they're creating their own brands. And they're doing it by being really authentically who they are. And the relationship that they're developing with their audience is super strong because of it. And so we got to work with Alexis and her team, and we had a lot of fun. And we made this piece here. We actually made a whole campaign around it. We had 10 different YouTube creators that we worked with. And we wanted to take the piss out of all the ways that women are portrayed in the world, and in advertising and in Hollywood, and really kind of celebrate that our YouTube women actually were being authentically who they were. Because it was really very special, and it was what made them both happy as creatives, but also wildly successful with the audience. So we're going to roll a video piece for that. Now,
You guys see?
I don't know, I feel like I get out of the way. Kind of big, yay!
Yay, video.
So that's the kind of big film, but we had also different category films. We had social posts, but it was really about celebrating these women being authentic. And I think why that really resonated with me was the whole journey with which my personal journey as a creative. So I've been very lucky. I've been in incredible agencies. I've worked with people who I think are awesome people who have always supported me. But I will tell you this, when I first got into advertising, for about the first decade, and I won't tell you how many decades I've been in advertising, so it's none of your business. But when I first got into advertising, I was like always one of 3 at the max women in the creative department. And I kind of realized this pretty quickly. I went to my first agency. There's actually somebody in the audience right now from that first agency. He's in the way back. And I came in high heels and a business suit, skirt like Ally McBeal. I don't know if you guys remember those Ally McBeal business suits. And I clomp my way in, and I was like, I'm a lady, I'm a business lady, I'm going to do this advertising in the creative department. And I quickly realized that the more ladylike I was, the more on the outside it was going to be from this very core and tight creative group. And I think my reaction to it was,
I'm not, I'm not ashamed of it, but I do think my reaction was to become more of a man, and to behave more, to defeminize myself, and to not really lean into ideas that would, ever make me cry or touch me emotionally or speak to my own life experience. I know physically, I started dressing like a hobo. Like I would wear like these like big floppy pants and like, I was just totally trying to de-lady like myself. But as a creative, I remember I started gravitating toward ideas that had more testosterone in them. And it's great, and I really love the work that I did, and I really am proud of it. But sometime around the birth of my second child, something changed kind of chemically in me, and I also think that the world started to change in what they were looking for from their creative. And clients started asking for people with different points of view. And I was lucky enough to have a mentor at the time who said, why don't you lean into the things that your life experiences, the things that move you emotionally, and really go with it. And it's been really the difference, I feel, for the work that I do. So bringing us back to this, when we started working with these creators, it was really amazing because they have completely ignored 50, 60, 70 years of advertising and what it means to build a brand, and have really focused on showing warts and all and who they really authentically are.
Yeah, what's amazing about the YouTube creators that have surfaced and have the most engaging audiences, I think, is that they're the types of people who find something they're really passionate about, and they just do that over and over and over and over again. And I'm sure we've all wished we could do this and wished we could be that person, and I'm sure a lot of you are. But being able to repeat something and create your own proficiency, that's what they do. They're just obsessed about their craft. And so that has allowed them on YouTube, because it's a democratic platform, it's allowed them to have an authentic conversation with fans who actually want to engage with their talent and their content. And so when we went out to select the women that we worked with, it took a lot of work, because we wanted to find people who were authentic, not necessarily big. Like, we didn't care about follower counts, we didn't care about any of that. So some of them were a lot smaller at the time or new to the platform, because we really wanted to show diversity, and we really wanted to understand what is an authentic conversation for women online. And so that's why it turned into sort of a case study for us as well as a campaign for YouTube, because when interviewing each one of these women, it became clear to me that it's not actually enough for Jamie and I to say, well, we're women, so we get it, so we're going to make this campaign for women, and we're going to write the scripts and all of that. These women actually were writing it with us and commenting on all of the lines, and they had to approve everything. So yes, it was a lot of work, but I think the outcome was much better.
It was, and it's funny because we went into the set with like a plan of what we were going to shoot, and working with them as we were sitting there, they'd be like, oh, this just doesn't feel authentic to me. This doesn't feel like who I am and what my brand is about. And we had to change things on the fly.
We had to go out and buy shoes for them, all sorts of
props. Like, go find us some binkies. Like, where are we, pacifiers, where are we going to find binkies? Well, find some.
Yeah.
And it was, and I think that process was really great and really collaborative. And also it allowed them to feel like they were not lying.
Yeah, because authenticity was just as important to them as it is to us for this, and more so too, and they're individuals. So I think the biggest challenge here is that we've been shown in the media, so many different types of women that are not actually resonating. If over 90% of women are saying that creative doesn't speak to them, then we all should ask a question, like, what exactly are we doing wrong? What conversations are women actually having? And looking to these women, the beautiful thing about this is that we got to understand what their unique conversations were. So I think, I don't know, what do you think was the most interesting person that we worked with?
Person, you're in trouble. I actually thought Yolanda Gamp, who is the cake maker, was really interesting because her whole personality is about wacky fun. And there were things that we thought were in her own brand of wacky fun. And we asked her to do these things. And you could see her shut down immediately, emotionally. And she was like, this is not my brand of fun. Like, my brand of fun is literally like 2 degrees different. But it was very important for her. I thought that was really inspiring because it was a woman who kind of knew what she wanted. And she was really going to be really true to herself to get it. You?
Yeah, and also to add to that too, I think a lot of this was about figuring out how to work with YouTube creators specifically is very unique than hiring talent, because they're not actresses, and they're very real, they're very raw. And I think that that is what their audience is demanding. And I think one of the big takeaways here too is that there is a big demand for real and authenticity. Like, women are not looking for perfection. They want somebody to relate to and to have a conversation with. And when we see mainstream media, we see big advertising, we see people that have been scripted to talk a certain way and to look a certain way and to wear shoes that they did not pick in the middle of the shoot, then what you end up with is the same kind of shit. And so, working with them allowed us to really understand, like, oh, I don't even get it most of the time. It's really hard for me to understand because they're so unique and dynamic, and we don't have examples of what this campaign should look like. So we didn't necessarily get it all right 100% of the time, but I think we got a lot of experience about how to get pretty close.
I mean, I think a huge takeaway when you kind of look at making work that speaks to people is to try to find, work that speaks to you and to not try to change your voice for really anybody. And I think that is an inspiration that definitely got on the set, because these women cultivate these really deep audiences who love them and will do anything for them. And it's because they're very true to who they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think also, too, working with so many creators, I don't know how many people in the audience have worked with YouTubers before, but it can be challenging for brands and advertisers to actually find the right people to work with. And then once you find them, let's say you find the perfect YouTuber to work with, it's hard to know how to represent them in an authentic way when you're on a production schedule and you've got to shoot and you've got to deliver and all of this kind of stuff. And I think for me the biggest part was this kind of campaign, speaking to women, is really, really hard, and nobody will criticize you for taking extra time. Give yourself the time to do it. There aren't very many examples, and I think there's so much benefit. There's so many opportunities right now to do this really, really well. And it just hasn't been done that much. Most campaigns are about empowering women. They have very lofty messages about, like, all women should be empowered, like, speak out and all this kind of stuff. But then what do you say? Like, speak out. And then how do I speak? What do I say?
I gotta tell you, the most interesting fucking thing about this was that these women were empowering themselves. Nobody had to say, you be you, go do your thing, go girl. These women were like, screw you, dude. I got a camera and I got an audience, and I made that all myself.
I'm already going.
And so I feel like that is something that we should all kind of take, that little spirit, that little firepower, and we should put it in our bellies, and we should save it for any time that we're feeling a little bit down, and be like, screw you, dudes. We're gonna make it ourselves. I don't know. Anyway. I'm leading a rebellion. Who wants to join? Let's go.
We're leading a rebellion.
Yes, all right.
And honestly, it's not a rebellion against dudes. Like, it's actually like it's something for everybody. It's a challenge. Like, think of it as a creative challenge, just like any other creative challenge. It just happens to be a taboo topic. It's some scary feedback.
You know what I think it's a rebellion about? It's a rebellion against expectations that are put on you, and it's a rebellion against your fear to really truly express yourself like the way you want to. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it should be fun, honestly. It should be fun. It should be a fun challenge to address.
What do you think?
So I think we have time to open it up for questions, which could be kind of scary or really awesome, depending on what everybody wants to ask. Does anybody have any questions for us?
Come on. Oh, we got one back there.
Yes.
He's actually already mic'd, so it's easy.
Turn on his mic.
So you guys have talked a lot about what to say in these marketing messages, these ads, but are the ways that the story is being told, are those changing also? Are they different? Like, how are you thinking about forms and formats for these stories, in particular the ones that women will respond to?
It's a very interesting question. We actually did a whole lot of testing on different formats to use. And I would say, first we're dealing with the digital landscape, which is challenging enough. So I would say that throughout the process of understanding how to craft for digital and social and different channels so that you can be very dynamic and targeted with your advertising, the more targeted your creative is to women, the better your targeting is going to be on paid media anyways.
And I would just add to that, on all of the work that we do, whether it's we do a lot of work to men, we do a lot of work to teenage boys, old people, everything. I feel like what digital platforms have opened up is the ability to have a conversation two-way with people. And it's clearly what our YouTube creators have learned themselves. And so whether you're speaking to women or you're speaking to really anybody, I think going and using the social tools that we have to really go in there and learn about them is is a great way to kind of stoke the conversation and keep it going further.
Mm-hmm.
I've got another one.
In the back.
You joked that you wanted to lead the charge. I was curious to know where you see the future in terms of advertising to women.
Oof.
How much time we got?
Well, how much time? You know, here's what I would like. I would like us to stop. I hope that in 2 years' time, we're stopping even this conversation happening. I hope that in 2 years' time, we're just making great work for human beings. And if your audience is a woman, and you make something that makes her laugh, and you make something that makes her want to fight, or you make something that makes her cry, or whatever that is, then you've just done a great job. And I feel like the industry is, I feel like we've at a point where, I mean, I'm walking down the Croisette, and I'm seeing all these things about, and I'm on this freaking panel, and I'm seeing all these things about women. And I think we're hopefully at a tipping point where 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, we're just making great work. We're just using our creativity, and we're just using our creativity to speak to people.
Yeah. Yes.
Hi guys, I wanted to just ask you a question about YouTubers and the age groups of fans. These women kind of represent me a little bit more, I would say, compared to, say, 5 years ago. The YouTubers that we saw then. Have you seen that audiences are getting slightly older of these kind of series, or is it still very much the kind of teenage demographic?
So I think there are more women who are feeling more confident, like more older women who are feeling confident, and I mean, they're not that old, but the demographic is very broad, and what we wanted to do was to select women who represented lots of different age groups as well. And so this campaign was meant to be a little more mature, mostly to understand how to speak to that kind of audience. So you'll notice the creative is very different than any other YouTube creative that we did.
One of my favorite people that we met was Angie, who's her handle is Hot and Flashy, which is really funny. And she basically was like, I'm getting older. I want to fight it. She's like, I just want to fight it, and I don't care. I don't think I should feel bad for saying that. So again, being authentic. And so she decided to create a channel where she tries all the anti-aging techniques, and like warts and all will tell you about all the positives and negatives. Like, this one gave me diarrhea. She'd be like, I'll just tell you. I don't care. I'm going to tell you because someone needs to know. And so I feel like the really exciting thing was watching women of different age groups, even within our own group of women, our cohort of women that we brought in here, kind of using and tapping into the platform to kind of to do something that they felt was an opening in the market, or something that they wished that they had personally.
Yeah. Did you have a question?
Yeah. Hello. Hi.
Hi.
I think I've got 2 questions, but I'll start with this one. Why is it, do you think, that advertisers, when the target market becomes a mother, suddenly assume that the woman has had a lobotomy and no longer finds anything humorous or stupid? You know, suddenly everything becomes very bland and banal. And it's probably the biggest thing that advertising agencies seem to fight against, the horrendous thing when you see a brief and it says target markets mums.
Oh, preach, man, preach. Because I'll tell you this. For so long, you know, I've run creative departments for many years now. And I think it's getting better. But I will tell you that when a brief would come in for a female-targeted audience, whether it was a mother or not, I could not get a creative to do it if I offered them like $1 million, just my personal, I don't have $1 million cash, but if I had it, like, you know, my personal cash. And I think the reason why was because they weren't sure that they were going to get work that was going to be good. Like, why are you going to spend like a year of your life making something that's shit? I think we're changing. And I feel like what's happening is that clients are getting more bold, and they're starting to understand that if they really want to have a place in people's lives, that they have to speak to them in a real way. And they have to actually treat them as more than just a walking credit card. And they have to somehow tickle their heart or tickle their mind, or I don't know, tickle wherever. And so that is how you're going to be effective. Otherwise, you're going to get left behind. And I feel like it's changing. I really do.
Yeah, just briefly to add to this, I think it goes back to kind of the 2 points, which is that there aren't very good examples out there. And so if you think about your data is only good as the junk you put in. And so then if you have historic data on like what women respond to, what mothers respond to online, and they've only been shown the same kind of stuff over and over again, then a lot of that same stuff is going to be created, and you're going to get briefed in the same way, which is, here's our profile, here's our customer profile, and here's what we know about her, which is actually probably very little. So that's part of it. And then another part of it is basically like what Jamie's saying, that we need to take that challenge and actually challenge the briefs probably, because I think there's so much pressure in the industry to say, I know. And it should be okay to say, I actually have no idea, please help me, and like go do more research and take time with it.
And I think we have to challenge our clients. When we represent something, and we have wonderful clients, so I don't feel like we have to, but when we present something that is a little bit more interesting, I think we have to say, yeah, trust me, like this isn't, this is something you need to do. You need to go there.
Yeah. I think our time is up. So thank you.
Wow, all right.
If you have questions, we'll be around. Mic on. Great. So we have Yukunwa and Ben coming up next to talk about Say What? Customizing Creative by Audience. Come on up.
Pull these chairs over to the side a little bit so you guys can see the work when we come up. There we go.
Where I sit?
I don't care why you sit. This, I think, is more comfortable.
Okay, cool.
There you go. Hey guys, I'm Ben. I'm a creative director at Google. I run a group called Unskippable Experiments. We're doing experiments to understand the sort of future of content and how to make ads more effective. And it's my deep and abiding pleasure to be with Ikonwo Ojo here, who is the senior vice president, runs Covergirl in the US, and has a long list of accolades which would take all of our time if I think I ran through them. The Financial Times, Ad Age, Creative 50, Marketing Times, Black Enterprise. I could fit it all in 20 minutes. I'm just going to go for it. But I think the thing that's most exciting about this conversation for me is that she's led one of the bravest brand transformations of any brand in the beauty space for Covergirl. And as a part of that, we've been helping them run some experiments to understand how you customize creative and how much customization delivers how much value. So what my team does is design these experiments. We have a control and measure it against a control to see what change is worth it. And in this case, we were trying to answer this question: what happens when you combine audience signals with changes in creative? I think we're all talking about personalization at scale, like it's a universal good, but how good is it? And it's a lot of work. If you're a creative, how much change is going to be worthwhile? So in order to understand this, first I want to talk about Covergirl, the brand, and the tribe that you pulled together, which Fast Company and Not I named multicultural badassery. Why did you select these women, and what were you aiming for the brand?
Awesome. Thank you, Ben, for the question. Thank you for having me here today. Hi, everyone. The biggest thing for us as we were relaunching Covergirl, it was actually very connected to the panel that happened before, was that we felt like there was, women were leading very multidimensional lives, but from a beauty perspective, it seemed to be very one-dimensional or single-dimensional. And that's that women have a lot of commas in their lives. Yes, they're moms, but they're also girlfriends, and they also love cooking, and they also love working out, and they also love motorcycle racing. Like, they have a lot of other interests. And so as we were pulling together, we had the opportunity to choose our new tribe of Covergirls. We wanted to make sure that we were representing what culture looked like, so ethnic diversity was important. But to be honest, that's just table stakes. That's just representing the community that participates in your category. The second for us was representing diversity in age and recognizing that there are several different ages of people who participate in the beauty category. So you know what? Like, let's celebrate that and represent that, which to me, that should also be table stakes. But in beauty, we still have a ways to go in doing that. So we got, May Musk, Elon's mom, is one of our cover girls. Love her. She's the one on the far right. So excited to have her. She's 70, and she looks better than most of us, which is amazing. She's been a model for 50 years. And then we also wanted to celebrate vocational diversity. And that's what I was talking about earlier, which is we felt that a lot of the brand ambassadors in beauty only came from basically 3 lines of work. There were models, there were singers, and there were actresses. And we just wanted to turn that a little bit on its head and recognize the fact that women play a lot of different roles in society, and in today's culture, even more so. And so for our new tribe of cover girls, we wanted to represent Shalina Moreda, who is a motorcycle racer and the first woman to race the Indy Raceway. We talk about Ayesha Curry, who is not just running one business, but several businesses successfully, and also being a mom, and also being a wife. We love that May Musk has 2 MS degrees, and she has been a model for 50 years, and also gave birth to like 3 geniuses. Then we have Issa Rae, who's a director and a producer and a comedian, and really is a voice of a new generation in entertainment, who actually got her start on YouTube, actually.
Got her start on YouTube.
Yeah. And then Masi Arias, who's a fitness, who's a fitness guru who will literally kick everybody's butt in here together. And if you don't follow her, you should, because she will literally challenge you to do things that you thought were impossible. So we loved having a very diverse group of cover girls to show that, beauty comes in a lot of different dimensions, and the more that we can bring that to the forefront, the better.
So I feel like what a lot of brands do is they put the table stakes out there, they make their print ad, and they're like, hey, we've done this thing, and so aren't we great? And they tell the stories in very traditional ways. So I think the first thing that you guys did that really surprised me was not just, hey, we have this incredible diversity of vocation, age, et cetera, but use very non-traditional targeting to try and reach those women. Tell me a little bit about why you went away from beauty mavens. What did you aim for? What did you find?
Yeah, our perspective was, because a woman loves beauty doesn't mean she doesn't like anything else, which is kind of basic, but that's not how we were buying media. We assumed that if we wanted to talk to you about beauty, we had to get beauty enthusiasts. But the reality is there are a lot of women who are cooking enthusiasts who love beauty. And why have a chef in Ayesha Curry if you're not going to leverage her in her full potential as a chef to target women who love cooking? Or women who love auto racing. They think Shalina's a total badass. So why not leverage Shalina as an awesome woman to talk to them about beauty versus only targeting people who've identified as beauty enthusiasts? So it really came from a place of recognizing that women have a lot of commas. We have a lot of interests. And about 80-something% of us participate in the beauty category, which is like all of us. So if you have a heartbeat and you love makeup, you have an interest other than makeup. And so that's such an awesome way to reach you and to tell you a story that could be relevant to you. So yeah, we did that, and we actually found that performed even better than targeting just on beauty alone, because the women leaned in a little bit more. The participant leaned in a little bit more because the content was even more relevant to them. So it was the highest performing ad that we had run on YouTube and Google ever.
Amazing. I can say with some confidence you're probably the first beauty brand who targeted auto racing, and then amazing to have found the results. So this, I think, was the first step that Covergirl and Google took together. And the next step was to say, well, we found these women, they have these other interests, and how about if we speak to those interests in creative, right? What difference does it make, and what are the signals that are going to make sense there? So the structure of these experiments is always the same. We have a control, in this case, a generic ad made from the footage using the brand marks and targeted against a demo. So you understand the baseline, it looked like this.
Covergirl, I am what I make up.
Right?
6 seconds.
6 seconds. All 6-second ads, all from existing footage. And then the structure of the experiment was 3 creative variations. A generic creative variation, one where we changed the copy based on the affinity signal, and one where we changed the visual and copy based on the affinity signal. And then 3 different layers of signals, all also non-traditional for beauty. So affinity for fitness, a life event, which was a new job, so people who were in job transition, and people who are in market for dating apps, which are all occasions where you can see a case there would be beauty, but they're not beauty mavens. They're not about beauty. It's not how-to beauty or beauty content. And so we really didn't know what was going to happen, right? Put them out there and see. So you can take a look at the creative. This is for fitness. So here first is the generic ad.
Covergirl. I am what I make up.
Right, I am a gym unicorn. It's just a line associated with the affinity, but exactly the same footage as the generic. And then this where the line and the visual are changed.
Covergirl. I am what I make up.
And then the same thing for the other. So here's new job, right? Just the visual and copy change.
Covergirl. I am what I make up.
And then in market for dating.
Covergirl. I am what I make up.
So before the big reveal, what did you think would happen? What were you expecting?
I think the hope for every marketer is if you are more relevant to the person that you're targeting, that it would be more effective. So that was definitely the hope. We put, quite a bit of effort to tailor the language or to tailor the creative to match the audience. So the hope is that when you bring all of that together, that it works to be more effective than your original.
That is the hope. So what did we find when we ran first? The audience targeting outperformed the demo universally. Every single creative variation and the generics outperformed. So all of the audience targeting was worthwhile. All the different signals were worthwhile. Second thing we found, that the life event was the most impactful targeting signal that we had. And for me, this is in a lot of ways the most interesting finding. I think life events are a sort of moment of emotional transformation. A lot of things about yourself, your identity are called into question, a new job, looking for a new job. It creates a moment of reflection and I think self-examination that makes you open to a different kind of story. And so for me, I was not surprised that the new job did well, although I thought that the dating app was going to do well. I thought the emotional urgency of that and the specificity of that.
That's awesome.
Well, I guess that maybe it's my dating life. I read too much in. When we did the workshop with the folks at Covergirl, we were all very excited about the prospect of that. Customized creative outperformed in general, but especially with younger audiences. And the thing about that is interesting for me is maybe for a younger audience, 18 to 24 or 25 to 34, my expectation is that things speak to me more. I'm used to the world being tuned into me. And so I expect, therefore, that the messages are tuned into me also, right? A higher bar for a younger consumer than an older consumer. But the last of these for me as a creative was super interesting. That is, in some cases, as in life events, the creative that had the visual and copy change was more effective. Sorry, for fitness, the visual and the copy change were more effective. And for life events, just the copy change was more effective. And I don't really know why that was. And you guys saw the creative. And so the first question is it a creative question, right? Is one creative simply better than the other? And that creative quality is always the first bar. But the second is there something inherent? How much change should I make? And how much complexity do I want to take on to deliver these messages? And the fact that just a copy change was very effective, I think opens up creative opportunity. But you're the one who's got to foot the bill for production. So how do you think about this? Obviously, there's a role for customized creative, but how do you think about what you're going to make moving forward?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is we're actually encouraged by the fact that without additional production, we were able to get better effective ads with the exact same content. So I think the table stakes here is that with the content that you've already shot, taking into account the different life events that people have or the different interests that they have, just a copy change in your existing content, not even just changing the content, will make a difference and impact in market, which I thought was really interesting. And then the second was tailoring the visual or tailoring the visual and the copy. But all of that, those were all assets that we had in the can from the shoot. So we didn't go out and shoot anything else. So I thought that was really interesting. Obviously, investing additional production, it depends on the size of the audience that you're going after. If the ROI is worth it, then I would say, yeah, totally. Like go out there and do a tailored shoot for the audience that you're trying to reach. But if you do nothing else, with the content that you have right now, you can have a better performing asset with what you already have, which is what we're trying to do, right? We're all trying to do more with less. And so that was very encouraging that every single asset we tested outperformed the original. So that has a lot of insight for all of us, I think.
And talk a little bit, I mean, you can't jump into 1,000 variations. We did 9 variations here. How do you think about sizing the audience and the strategic choice you would make to, when are you going to go over and to do a shoot specifically for a segment or an audience? When are you going to do an auto racing shoot? Or how do you think about that?
Lucky for us, we have Shalina, so we do auto racing shoots all the time. So our shoots in beauty have changed, right? Because now we're shooting a woman on a motorcycle, which is actually a lot more fun to shoot than in a studio. So that's been a lot of fun. I think the biggest thing is, like, what's the size of prize? And I think as business leaders, we do that all the time. If you're going after a new audience, you make assumptions and, like, what percentage of that audience do I think that I can convert? If I convert them, how many products do I think they will buy? What's the average price? You figure out the size of price for that. If you invest X amount in production to be able to get that, plus the media that you're going to spend behind it, is the return that you're going to get greater than the investment that you're going to put in? If it's greater, then I say go for it. There's no reason why you shouldn't change the way that you look at production and the way that you look at creative based on that. And if it's not worth it, then do this. Just work with the content that you have and tailor it a little bit more to their interests and to their life events, and you'll get a better performing asset anyway. So the way that I look at it is you really can't lose.
I would say, I just have to give a shameless plug. Yes, a copy line, but a copy line by the fabulous copywriters at Droga, who are some of the finest copywriters in the world. They're excellent, high quality, like great creative quality.
They're pretty amazing.
How do you think about briefing? Like you have this information, right, with assets that you had. You're going to have a new campaign. How do you think about changing the brief for Droga the next time around?
I think it's a lot of what we've talked about, bringing that to life in the briefing process. And when you paint a picture of who you're trying to speak to, and that person you're trying to speak to has a lot of commas in their life, bring that to life in the brief. Versus we're reaching all moms 35 plus. Mm-hmm. I have a lot of friends who are moms. I have a lot of colleagues that are moms, and we have differing interests, other than the fact that we all have a child, potentially, plus one. And if you can go any deeper and give them additional insights on who this person is and what they love and what causes them to lean in a little bit further, where do they spend all of their time? If they're spending hours watching cooking shows, then even if you're selling beauty, you may be more effective leaning into that passion that they have. So I think it means we do a little bit of work up front, understanding who we're trying to talk to and what really drives them and what moves them. But then the work that comes out on the other end, I think, number one, will be more interesting to them, but then on the flip side will be more impactful to your brand and to your business. So they have better content to watch, and then you have a better impact on your brand. So hopefully that's a win-win.
I will have to say I had 2 client meetings in a row today where the target was anyone with a mouth. And I think we can do better than that, right? I think we can tell a better story, a closer story, et cetera. So that, the gist of the experiment, thank you so much for that. We do have a couple of minutes for questions, and so I want to open it up if you guys have questions for us. Any questions? I just sent people scurrying for a mic. Yeah, questions? There in the back.
A hot topic of conversation today has been the relationship between data and creativity. So how do you take into account data when you're thinking of your next big ad?
How do you take into account data when you're creating your next big ad? What's the role of data in the briefing process? So how do you guys think about that? When does it come in? Where does it come in from? Who do you look for it from?
Yeah, so we have a lot of data internally. We actually have an in-house digital agency called Beamly. So we're kind of data geeks, to be honest. I think a lot of CPG brands are, but we're particularly so because we have a lot of tools available to us. We have a lot of tools with our partners, like with Google. So we're data geeks in that perspective. But then from a partnership perspective as well, we're very fortunate to work with Droga 5, and I don't know if you guys have ever worked with Droga, but their strategy process, before you even talk creative, they go so deep on the insights and the data that drives the work. It's incredible. So we actually don't talk creative or creative brief until we've completely geeked out on who we're going after, why we're going after them, what's the motivation, what's happening in culture, why is it going to be relevant. That's where we spend the most of our time, because we've realized that when we get that right, the creative is so easy. We don't spend a lot of time in rounds. We don't do rounds and rounds of creative. We spend the time having the smart conversations up front. And when we get that right, the creative really just like falls out of that. It's like butter.
I think the interesting thing about the load of creative that we have is a lot of times people use it to avoid risk, right? Like I've delineated a totally safe territory where now I can only do a thing that'll definitely work. And I don't think that that kind of data analysis ever gets you to a Shailene Woodley, ever gets you targeting auto racing for beauty. So how do you use data to take risks? Like how do you feel like this is going to steer us in a direction where nobody else is steering?
Because you know that what you're doing is relevant. And so, yes, it's a risk because you've never seen it in beauty, but it's not a risk because a lot of people have raised their hands and said they're really interested in that. So if you tap into the insight that already exists in data, I actually think that that's less risky versus showing up as every other beauty brand and then you're struggling to cut through. I think it's more powerful to actually look at all of the interests that people are raising their hands saying they're super jazzed about and tapping into that. I think there's more opportunity for upside there, definitely opportunity to stand out. And we've seen the benefit of that on the brand and on the business.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Cool,
Thank you guys all for coming. Enjoy the rest of Con.
Thanks.
you.